Good morning, Philippines. Good evening, America. My name is Tinette Cortez, and welcome to my FB Live session today called Living the American Education Dream. I'm very excited for today's episode because today I have three of my very good friends who are joining us to share their very inspiring stories about their American education experience. And some of you might probably be thinking, why am I doing this particular episode? And that's because, my daughter and I, when we visit the States, we usually make it a point to visit some of the nicest universities. And it's very exciting to watch the students and the faculty members just engage with each other. And, the facilities are really world class. And just to share with you a couple of pictures that Sophia and I had taken when we visited the States in separate occasions. So we were able to visit Harvard Business School, Harvard University. We went to Yale in Connecticut, and of course, Northeastern University, not too far from Harvard in Boston, and of course, Columbia University in New York. So without further ado, I'm gonna be sharing with you a little bit of a background of my friends today, and of course, we will hear more from them later on. So let's start off with my very good friend. Well, she's actually Bicolana. She's originally from Bicol, and she finished her PhD and is currently, of course, still taking her master's in Harvard Medical School. And just to she will be sharing with us her background later on, and she's also been involved with some research work at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Miss Jal Jane Fojas. Hello, Jane. Hi
Hello,
there.
everybody.
How are you?
I'm
How's
very well, thank you. Well, it's really hot here, hotter
I'm
than Manila.
sure. I'm sure it's very hot, Jane, and we'll hear more from you later. Okay. All right. So thank you so much, Jane. And now, of course, my second friend who's joining us today is, well, he finished college counseling with distinction at the UCLA and also took his master's in physics from the Washington State University and has a bachelor's degree in physics from Santa Clara University, Mr. John C. Hello, John.
Hello. Uh,
Hi.
uh, uh, Hi, sorry about that.
Hi
Yes,
there.
good morning and good evening to everyone, wherever you are listening to. Thank you for having me, Jeanette.
You're welcome, John. And of course, the last but not the least, and I think still the youngest in the group, my very good friend. She finished magna cum laude. Wow. From the Northeastern University, and is currently still based in Boston with a new job. And without further ado, please welcome Miss Charmille Colleen Dizon. Hello, Colleen. Hi.
Hi everyone.
How are
Thank you,
you?
Mom Tinette, for having me. I'm really excited to be with John and Jane.
Yes,
Um,
of
to,
course. And you remember this photo, which was taken a couple of years back when you were just starting in NU, and that's really a very memorable experience, isn't
yeah, I was gonna say I was only a
it?
sophomore when you last visited me, so you
Yeah,
should come soon.
exactly. Very soon. All right. Thank you, Colleen. And yeah, so there you have it, guys. Just for everybody's information, if you have any questions and you want to visit our website to know more about what Consult Asia does, Consult Asia, by the way, is my training and development company. We offer training programs on soft skills, helping people become more effective and more productive with their work. And also, we have some life skills training and life coaching and more. So just feel free to visit our website, www.consultasiaglobal.com. And if you have any questions for our guests later, if you weren't able to watch today's live episode, just feel free to email us at info@consultasiaglobal.com. Okay, so with that, guys, please join me here. Wow. So, good evening, ladies in Boston, and good morning to John, because John is in Manila. All right, so I think where I'm gonna start off with just my first question, and well, it's not really a question, but I'd really like for you guys to share with our family and friends what got you into the American education system? You might want to share your story, and I'd like to start off with Jane, if that's okay, because guys, just for your information, Jane here, I didn't include it in my description of her because she and I actually met through the Oxford Philippine Society. Okay, so when I was in the UK taking my higher studies in Oxford, Jane was also at Cambridge at that time. So by the way, she also has a PhD in Cambridge. I just didn't have to promote that because we're talking about the US today. But this lady actually was born to study and excel. Okay, so Jane, tell us a little bit about your story.
Well, yes, learning never stops. And that's the way of life. And that's how we should all live, I think,
Mhm.
to constantly learn from people, from each other, and from different universities. So a little bit about me. I met Ati Tinet in Cambridge. I also went to Oxford before. That's why I'm a member of the Oxford Philippine Society. And so, yes, I basically did a lot of graduate studies abroad. I went to Harvard first, and then later on I moved to Oxford and then Cambridge, and now I'm back at Harvard. So it's a wonderful experience, quite toxic, I would say, but it's quite a learning curve, really. Yeah. So
Jane, where do you get all this motivation to keep studying and keep learning? And you're not just studying, so you're not just taking a certification course somewhere or an online course somewhere. You're literally hitting the walls of the Ivy League schools in the US, and of course the Oxbridge, halls in the UK. Where are you getting all this motivation from?
well, I would say that my primary vision is to actually be able to help save lives, so become a clinician scientist. And to me, this is a very big responsibility. This is you are given an opportunity to save a life, and that to me is very critical in a sense that I want to be able to look my patients in the eye and tell them that I've learned everything that I could. I've been trained in every possible way that I could to be able to help you. So to me, that's a huge responsibility, and it means that I really have to work hard, get all the trainings that I could, learn everything that I could, so that when the time comes that I'm faced with someone who is dying, I could have a clear conscience and tell them that I did everything that I could to help them.
Wow,
So
that's really very noble, Jane. Okay, so we're gonna hear more from Jane later on. And okay, so what about you, John? What got you into the American education system? John, by the way, was my physics teacher in Ateneo. And are we gonna be sharing my little story later, John? And that's a very you're muted. You're still muted.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah,
Yeah.
I was going to say that it's really up to you. How did I get into this? To doing this? Well, in the 1980s, back when before any of the my fellow panelists were born, I was a senior in high school, and then my mother came up to me and said, I had no inkling about going abroad. My mother came up to me and said, well, why don't you try it? And so I said, okay, sure.
Mhm.
And I did. And after a while, I got into the whole process, and I figured, hey, this is really cool. And then until finally it came down to deciding whether or not I would leave.
Mhm.
And literally the letter in front of me was my crossroad. I could literally see a crossroad in my life. If I go, this will be one way. If I leave, this will go another way. And that's going to be a permanent change in my life. It was probably the first maybe adult decision I've had to make, when I was like 17 or something. And then I decided that in the end, I decided to go. And I've never really regretted that decision. The one decision in my life that I've never gone a day without thinking ever that I regretted that decision. So it really was great. That's how I got into it. And then in 1987, I graduated my bachelor's degree. Then returned to the US in 1990 to get my graduate degree in physics from 90 to 92 at Washington State in Pullman, Washington. And that's after that, that's when we met, Tinette. Yes, Dinette was my student a long time ago in Ateneo. I'm gonna say 94,
94, I think.
93 or
Wow.
94.
93, 93, I think. Oh my
93
God.
or
I'm
94.
so old.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I know. Colleen's like, can't even
I wasn't
imagine.
even born.
I know, right? So we were born even before you were born. Yeah, so it was 93, and she took a class with me, and it was a very basic introductory physics class. And it was, one memory of Dinette that I have is that she was always present, and she was always seated right in front of me in the front row. She was right in my eye line, which was great. I mean, I always knew she was a very attentive student.
Yes.
Yeah, right. Diba? So, did you want to tell the rest of the story, Dinette, or should?
Yeah, sure. I'm very proud of my history in Ateneo because I started off. I think I took up business management first. My freshman and sophomore year, and guys, I have to be honest. I was really struggling with accounting, even
Yes, you
to this
were.
day.
Yes, you were.
Even to this day in my business, my team knows that every time it's about IT and accounting, my brain just shuts off. Okay, so and now I understand why, because in university in Ateneo before, I was literally flunking my accounting tests, and I'm proud of it. Okay, I remember, John, there was a time where, because we would take the accounting exams in the big auditorium, right? And I would be seated at the back, and you could see everybody. There were like 300 students taking the accounting exams, and it's good for like 3 hours. And then you know what? Like 30 minutes. In 30 minutes, I'm done. It's like, wow, I'm so good. I'm so good at not answering the questions because I just couldn't. My brain isn't trained that way. I don't. It's not wired that way. So, anyway, to cut the long story short, I went on an academic probation. I was on academic probation for that
Sorry, I remember.
semester. And my God, if I didn't shape up, I was gonna get kicked out. And of course, my parents were very, very supportive. They were just saying, Tinette, what happens, will always be for the best. Okay. But of course, I didn't want to get kicked out because at that time, John, Colleen, Jane, I was really going through some emotional roller coaster ride at that time. I was dealing with a heartbreak, I think. That was the reason.
Mhm.
Okay, not that I was very daft, okay, but it wasn't a good, I wasn't in a good place at that time. So of course my studies were compromised. And then John here, of course, was my physics teacher at that time. And I said, John, look, I think I'm gonna get kicked out. And then John just kept on telling me, you were saying something, John, diba, na parang, no, you can do it, just, he was pushing me to do better in physics, and maybe that can pull up my grade, something. And then, at the end of the day, I just decided I'd shift to psych. And what happened, John? What happened the next semester?
Okay. This is the best part of the story. Okay, you have to listen, both of you. You have to listen. This is the great part of the story. Okay. So she's in academic probation, right? So she changes
Yeah.
major psychology, and does not take any more accounting for the rest of her natural life. Okay, so she takes it. Okay, and this is the best part of it. She makes the honor roll the very next semester. I don't know how many people who are on academic probation one semester, and then the following semester are on the honor roll. Not many. I don't think Ateneo has ever seen that. I haven't ever seen that. I haven't seen it ever. And I think that's real testament to her, to Dinette, how, it's not how far you fall, it's how high you bounce back. And for her, it was really a good kind of a life lesson for her, because failure is not a permanent state. And I think that I told her myself later on that I was really incredibly proud of her, because I thought that was just, I was amazed at what happened. And it just goes to show you that it's,
Mhm.
You can bounce back.
absolutely
Did-
you can bounce back. And that's something that
Sorry.
our two younger people here can learn from, because you guys are very accomplished students. You probably never had any academic issues.
Yeah.
But sometimes I think I wish that failure would be baked into a curriculum, like you had some kind of college curriculum where you're allowed or almost required to fail.
Yeah.
Not that it's really, really super, super hard, but it's baked into it, so that if you fail, it's okay, because there's you don't do something, there's a way to bounce back from it. Because I think there's some real valuable lessons from that sort of thing.
Yeah. Well, thank you so
John,
much,
I'm
John.
curious.
That's why, yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I have a
please.
question. I'm
Sure.
curious as to if that in any way inspired your career path because of what you've seen.
Oh,
So
because
it's
of
like
Tinette?
transition to college consulting.
No, that's a little bit more. It was actually a little bit more convoluted than that. I eventually migrated to Canada and then actually I got married there, and then I married my wife in Canada, and then moved to actually New Jersey, not too far from where you guys are, and took a job there, and then eventually returned to the Philippines. Eventually, my eldest started to look for schools, and just like Tinette, we also visited colleges in the States as well. And eventually, my child went to Canada, and but the whole process sort of made me think, hey, this is a really cool thing to get into, because there's no guidance in the Philippines, I would say professional college counseling in the US. You always have these fly-by-night, like a parent or a student. It's not professional. So I decided that I would be a professional about it. I went to get my college certification, my college counseling certification, and until today I'm still doing professional development, that sort of thing. And that's how I got into it. Very much. Pag ganyan,
Actually,
it
John,
doesn't
I'm
come out
sure-
in a straight line. Yeah, sorry.
I'm sure a lot of our fellow Filipinos would be interested to know, what it would take for them to be able to
Sure.
get into a U.S. university. So
Sure.
we'll hear more from John about this later on. So
Yeah.
okay, thank you for that, and thanks for sharing the story about the 1993 episode.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's a great story. I love that story.
Right. So, Colleen. Okay. So Colleen and we met through. So the real story here is, so I have a cousin. Her name is Ate Vanji Arsenas, and Ate Vanji at that time was saying, Tinette, why don't you contact my friend Dr. Patty Liku? She was she still is connected with the ICTSI Foundation, and she said, why don't you contact her and see if they have any training requirements? And so I did. So Ate Vanji actually introduced me to Dr. Patty. And to cut a long story short, ICTSI Foundation became Consult Asia's client for their training programs, team building, and other learning activities. And one of their activities was to ask Consult Asia to coach their and I think I'm going to ask Colleen to share this story, but I met Colleen through ICTSI Foundation, who actually are, very, very close to me, very dear to me, very close to my heart. And I hope some of them are watching us today. So Colleen, you might want to share your story and how you were able to go to Northeastern University.
Yeah. All right. I tend to get really sappy and just like extremely overwhelmed every time I talk about this, because when I was probably 13 or 14 and you asked me where I wanted to go for college, I would definitely say any one of the universities in the Philippines, and never would have imagined or even just like had the thought that I'd be able to go to the US. And that's because I grew up in the province and I attended public schools up until high school. And then this opportunity just came, and really grateful to ICTSI Foundation that they have this scholarship to go to Northeastern full time, and it's a full ride scholarship. And I was just really overwhelmed by the fact that we got that my family and I were blessed with that opportunity. So I didn't even think through like what's beyond it. Like what does that mean? Like what does an American classroom look like? And that's how Mom Tinette and I were introduced. She basically taught us and gave us an intro on like, here's what you should expect. A couple of professional and self-development training, introduced us to this other organization, Education USA. Yeah, it's really grateful for that opportunity and for that send off, Mom Tinette. Up until now, it's been 5 years. So
Yes.
that's how I got into the US education system,
And
which I'm still
yeah.
very grateful and really overwhelmed every time I think about.
Oh, Colleen, that makes me so emotional because I clearly remember you were only 16 at that time, right? You were 16, seated at the office in Manila, of the Office of ICTSI Foundation, and you were so young. And I was looking at you, and I thought, oh my God, she's gonna be leaving the Philippines, and her mom will be, oh, because I'm a mom too, right? Of a young
Mhm.
lady, and I'm sure your mom, Irene, is watching right now, I suppose, because she's been liking our post and sharing our, poster. So thank you so much, Irene, for your support. But yes, I could feel that. And she was even sharing that you guys were staying in one room, and then all of a sudden you had to leave for the States. So that must have been really
Mhm.
difficult also for the family, to have you leave at that very young age. But just to let you know, Colleen, I'm so proud of you. I mean, wow, just the marks that you're making in Boston. I'm so proud of you. So, and I can't wait for you to inspire everyone who's listening today, okay, and
Mhm.
watching. So just to say hello to people, because we're getting messages from Lulu Dizon. I think she's related to you. Hello, Miss Lulu. And Mr. Romeo Cayetano Mataro. Proud of you, anak. Calls. I think he calls you, oh, Calls. And of course, Miss Lynn. Hi, Miss Lynn Risoso, my very good friend from the hotel. She says, interesting topic. And Miss Lulu Dizon says, she's your proud aunt. So, yes. Well,
Mhm.
you've got all your supporters. And then, of course, my very good dear friend, Rose Nara Greenrod from Australia. Hi, Rose. She's watching from Australia. And yeah, and Miss Nova Guan Lao. Clap, clap, clap. Miss Irene. Okay, your mom says, thank you, Ma'am Tinette Cortez. You're welcome, Miss Irene. And you have raised such a wonderful daughter. And lastly, Miss Mylene Grant, amazing, Colleen, to hear this story of your journey to US education and so your amazing achievements. So proud of you. All right. So,
Colleen, you
all
sound
right.
like somebody I would have loved to have worked with.
Yeah, she. I mean, you guys are such um, inspirations to so many Filipinos. So I guess my question to all three of you would be: how has your experience been very different from? What do you think is very different from your experience in the U.S. Compared to the experience of your friends, say here in the Philippines, when it comes to college life or university life? Maybe Jane would like to start.
Well, I would say that, well, I did my postgraduate mostly abroad. So
Mhm,
it's different from college life, I would
mhm,
say. Graduate school entails a lot of focus and
mhm,
extreme concentration. That it's essentially a self-absorbed bubble.
mhm.
Um, in whichever university you're in whichever continent, in whichever country. And one thing that I could say that is very critical and different compared to the Philippines is, of course, cultural diversity. So the people that you meet here comes from all different backgrounds, different countries.
Mhm.
You know, it's like a jar of jelly beans, all sorts of colors and shapes and sizes. And to be able to adapt to that circumstance demands a certain efficiency and effectiveness in communication and also social skills,
Mhm.
emotional skills. More than just science, you have to be able to deal with different humans with different perspectives and different backgrounds in life. And so that's really critical when you're studying abroad. And you will learn a lot from different people, different points of views, and that's really good. To me, it's a very inspiring, and it essentially catalyzes my growth professionally, personally, and in a more profound way, I would say, to open your eyes about what it's like to be a global citizen. Yes.
That's really interesting. When you mentioned that it's more than just science, because most of the time people think that being very smart, with academics is what's gonna get you, to these universities. But you're absolutely right that soft skills are very important. Emotional wellness is very important. Mental health is also very important, and social skills. Definitely social
Yes.
skills. And I like what you said, that communication skills they play a big part in your success as well when you leave for abroad. Okay, thank you, Jane. What about you, John? How has
Okay.
it been different, you think? Because you went to Xavier. By the way, guys, John here is a Conyo kid. Xavier boy to. So so Shal, in other words,
Okay,
okay?
so so I did graduate from Xavier back in
Mhm.
1983, a long time ago.
Yeah.
How did it change? It's hard to say because I never went to college here, so
Mhm.
I can't really make a direct comparison. I didn't transfer or anything. I just went straight out. Siguro, the only thing I can really say is I'm just inferring from when I was in teaching and what I could see from life in college here. How is life different there? I always like to tell people, well, the bathrooms are cleaner. I always joke like that, which I think, Colleen will nod and say, yeah, okay. But I think it's more the way life is done over there. For instance, the fact that unlike college here, college over there is primarily residential, in which you live on campus. It's not just living in the dorm like you would hear in the Philippines. It's, you got the people come from far away live on campus because they have to. In the U.S., it's really more part of the educational system is to live the residential system. So for me, that was a big eye opener, big just a mind kind of blowing kind of experience.
Yeah.
I think the most important things I learned from abroad is not physics, it's not mathematics, but I think it was more really trying to embrace viewpoints that were different from mine. And I certainly, my own uh, mindset has developed throughout the years of being there. So
Mhm.
I remember being very kind of like a lot of hang-ups and and then a lot of really kind of repressed conservative views that you normally come out with. And then in the States, meeting gay people for the first time. And I remember that I was actually physically uncomfortable with being my first divorced woman. Today is like, what's the big deal? But when I remember, that was uncomfortable for me when I first met this woman who was divorced.
Mhm.
But having that experience going forth and realizing that these are, they were really good experiences for me.
Yeah.
So for me, it's not the academics. It's really
Mhm.
just the cultural and the social learning that you get from being abroad.
Wow, John,
Mhm.
that's really powerful, because you're absolutely right. I mean, these days at Consult Asia, we conduct a lot of training workshops for professionals, like for corporate clients, right? And we're training people in their 40s or in their 50s already. And we're just teaching them how to have the global mindset. And we are teaching this to them at 40 or 50. But you guys, because you had to leave at such a young age, you were already immersed in that kind of environment where you actually had to learn developing the global mindset. And as you said, you're seated next to somebody with a different skin color, right, or speaks a different language, and that is really, wow, it's really
That's
an eye
true.
opener, right?
That's true. I think
Yeah.
that a lot of I think that a lot of Americans can they tend to be very insular, as maybe Colleen and Jane will agree with me. They tend to be a little bit insular, and they don't know
Mhm.
much about the world that they live in. And I
Yeah,
think that it would do them good. I wish that they would just go out and
true.
probably travel more, and not just
Exactly.
travel and go live
Yeah,
in, travel to like another country and live in
on a
Marriott.
holiday or
Yeah, the
something.
Holiday Inn, right?
Exactly.
Just to immerse
It's
yourself in
different,
the
it's
culture.
very
Yeah,
different.
yeah, oh yeah, totally, totally different.
True, true. And the networking thing, right? And Colleen would know this. Colleen really, she left at 16. She was very, very young. And I mean, I'm sure she can share with us some of her experiences. So Colleen, what about you? What can you say about this?
Yeah, I was gonna say, John and Jane, feel free to jump in. But I feel like when we think about the differences between back home and then here, there's two things. There's the experience, and then there's the academics. The academics, it's pretty much similar. You do 80% of the work, and then you learn 20% of the time in the classrooms. Your professors give you what to expect from you. Like you have a list, you have your syllabus of what exactly they need from you. I think a bit of a different thing is that you have many opportunities to basically open doors for your future, as I think of it. Like if you have the initiative to do research or anything outside that's still academic, you can pursue that. And there's so much freedom, and with that freedom, there's also responsibilities that come with it. But you have the freedom to do anything with your career. And in terms of experience, the funny thing, I was really shocked at the weather. That's just like a really slight, I wouldn't say it's a slight difference. It's a small thing, but it's a big difference. It changes your mood and like changes how you talk to people. So that was very different. It really took some adjustment in the first year. And as John and Jane mentioned, it's language and culture barrier. Overcoming that is also a bit different, since you have more exposure to cultural diversity. You have to be careful with what you're saying and what your actions are, because that can be interpreted differently. So then you tend to be you learn how to be agile, but also respectful to other people. And another thing is, as John mentioned, that like residential experience, living in the dorm with a lot of the students. So even though I was away from home, I didn't feel as lonely, although at times there are definitely those moments that you'd miss your family, since you can't just go back home on the weekends. But you were immersed in this environment with other people that are also doing the same thing. And what I really liked about it is that there isn't, I feel like social standing is almost never an issue, because you're experiencing the same education and getting the same resources, allowed to do anything that you want in terms of education and like having fun outside. So
one thing also that's
different.
interesting is that when I think back during my going back more than 30 years when I was in college, the signature experience of my college career was not my major. It was something completely different, and I don't know if it's the same for Colleen or for Jane. But if I think back on my college experience, the first thing that pops into my mind is the fact that I sang in the university concert choir for 7 semesters, or 7 quarters, I should say.
Wow.
Yeah, that was the one thing that really pops into my head. There's still pieces of music that I still remember. We did, Handel's Messiah, we did Verdi's Requiem. When I see those, when I look it up, when I watch those concerts on video on YouTube, I can literally sing along because I know the music, because I still remember it. I still remember it so well. Like it was literally more than 30 years ago, but the music still runs in your head. But it's good, and it's much more than just going to class. It's much more than just being attentive, but it's the friends that you make. Thanks to Facebook, I still keep in touch with my college roommate. I still keep in touch with my calculus professor. I still, so many opportunities. I was gonna say that with Colleen is that you're lucky you have this. When I was going to college, we had to write letters, like letter, stamp, envelope, and then wait for 2 weeks, that sort of thing. And then here you have instant, and if you call, it's a lot of money. It's $1 a minute. I remember it was $1 a minute when I called
Yeah.
So listen,
It was very
in the
different
video.
back then. It was very different back then.
Totally
And,
different. Totally different.
Colleen
But yet the
mentioned,
same in many ways, huh?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Some difference, but
Yeah.
very, very a lot of similarities.
similarities. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I see a theme of like the system is more about like making yourself better and less about competition. So you make a lot of friends and you have fun outside as long as you keep doing your thing
Mhm.
properly.
Right. Yeah, no, Colleen mentioned something very interesting earlier. She said, the cultural, you mentioned something about culture. And again, and Maria, my colleague from Canada, would know this, that we are so big on cultural intelligence. We teach our clients about cultural intelligence. And can you imagine having to teach that to professionals, whereas you guys, you already had the experience at a young age to develop cultural intelligence, and you guys are very, very blessed, and well done to the three of you. Okay, let me just say hello to our viewers, because yeah, Mommy Irene said, proud and thankful mom here, Colleen. So that's Mommy Irene. She's very supportive. And we'd also like to say to Miss hi to Miss to Joy Lapuz from ICTSI Foundation. Hello, I miss you, Colleen and Tinette. Hello, Joy. How are you? And then from Miss Lulu Dizon, also your aunt says, hello, Miss Tinette. Hi, Miss Lulu. And of course, Miss Chek Sai. Hi, Chek. She says, great to see you, Charmille with Tinette. All right. And then Miss Lorna Banyaga is watching. Also, hello, Coach Tinette. Hello, Miss Lorna. We also have Mirna Almeron. Hi, Ma'am Tinette, watching from Singapore. So we have viewers from the Philippines, Singapore, Australia, and of course, Mr. Manolito Mercado. Hello, Miss Manolito, is also watching. And we have a viewer from England. What time is it in England now? And they really are watching us, okay? Because they could, Tim couldn't move on from last week's discussion when we were talking about the UK universities, and I said, look, next week we're gonna have my friends from American universities. So he's actually up at the wee hours of the morning to watch us, guys. So yeah. So hello, Tim. And then Glady Lurad says, inspiring stories, Miss Tinette. So yes, they are very much inspired by you guys. And yeah, and Miss Edna Magcalas, Colleen, I think she's your aunt, and she says, wow, so proud of my niece, Colleen. Wow, you have so many supporters. Your family is very supportive. That's really good. Okay.
Thank you. It's my mom.
All right. So okay. Well, what about, I'm just curious, how has your American education shaped you as a Filipino? Because I know, you know how it is in the Philippines. We're very family oriented. We're very clannish. We're cliquish. We eat together with everyone. We go to the restroom together with everyone. I mean, I'm sure it's very different from the US. So would you like to share your experience, Jane, when it comes to shaping you? Because being Bicolana as well.
Well, to me, it's more of being aware that grit is not enough. Hard work is not enough. So I grew up in a really poor area, squatters area, in fact. So as a child, so we have nothing. And coming here, there are books everywhere. So I remember as a child, I would have to walk several hours to get to a library where we could borrow books. And this library is not even my elementary school, but another elementary school far from where I'm living. And so having all these resources all at once, you would realize that, in fact, the playing field was never leveled. It was never balanced for people coming from poor countries like the Philippines. From Filipinos who have been submerged to poverty. And so to me, it's understanding and being aware that grit is not enough. You would need tenacity. You would need sufficiency of psychological rigor, I would say, being sturdy, not to break when you're being bent to break. So it's an awareness, not just to me, but to everyone in the Philippines, that not all, and not every child has the resources and capacity and families or society that will support them to get an education. And if if resources are scarce and you are born poor, your socioeconomic status, even at Harvard, if you're poor at Harvard, even with a scholarship, you are at a disadvantage. The academic arena, the intellectual arena, is automatically skewed to the socioeconomically advantaged students. The educational system is for the rich and the people who have resources. So coming from a very poor background, I could totally say that grit is not enough. That you would have to withstand poverty in all levels, the psychological trauma from being poor, from not having resources, you would have to fight it off. And not every child could withstand that psychological trauma, that systemic trauma, collective trauma of being poor and being in a poor community. And that to me is something that I learned, not just as not just as a Filipina, but as a person. And that also gives me an understanding that this education that I'm getting from all these ancient medieval institutions that I've been affiliated to should be used to help sustain these poor children who may not have the family support to get an education. These children from rural areas who may not even have dreamt of going to college or finishing high school. And it's an opportunity for me to give back because I understand what they're going through. They might be going through hell or worse situation than I did.
Yeah.
And I know that most of them will break, like the people around me, like the children I grew up with. They died early. They went into criminal works. They never even graduated in elementary school. So, and that's not entirely their fault. If you are born poor, wherein you have to fend for yourself, you have to steal to be able to live. And that's just basic needs. What more, like dreaming of an education is a luxury. And this is something that I'm very much aware. And so using that education abroad to actually help children like this, children who may not have the psychological courage that I got or sustained or have been poured upon by my grandparents, and helping them not fail in their education, or at least have a better vision of getting one. So that to me is
Amazing, Jane. I could literally, burst into tears right now just listening to you speak from the heart, and just sharing your background and what really propelled you to do what you do now is just absolutely amazing. And I could see now. Now I have a better understanding why you're there, why you're moving back and forth the US and the UK. And I can't wait. I can't wait for you to making and I'm sure you already have been, but to really make a massive impact on the lives of our fellow Filipinos, especially, you're right, because education now seems to be a luxury, isn't it? I mean, even just to go to high school or to take a college degree here in the Philippines, it's almost like a luxury because not every Filipino has that opportunity. And with you as an inspiration to a lot of people here in the Philippines and abroad, I can almost say that, I can't wait. I just can't wait for more children, as you said, from the rural areas to have the same opportunity as you are. And the truth of the matter is, honestly, health and education should not be luxury, right? They should be available to everybody. And as Jane has mentioned, tenacity is what we need. Grit is not just important, because grit is like what keeps you started, but tenacity is what's gonna keep you going really strong and keep you strong the whole time.
Just to also, I'm sorry that I didn't mean to interrupt you,
Mhm.
but just to touch a little bit also on what Jane said, is that that's not a
Mhm.
problem just here in the Philippines. It's a problem all over the world.
Yeah.
Access to education is a problem.
Yeah.
Even in the U.S.
Mhm.
Even in the U.S., it's also a problem. You might
Oh,
think, oh,
true.
they're in the U.S., they should be okay. No, they're not. There's a lot of, it actually
Mhm.
is an issue in U.S. college admissions now, where there's a lot of inequity, a lot of disproportionate bias towards people who are wealthy, and people who are not so wealthy don't do as well.
Mhm.
And Jane is right. I think that even, it is an issue that we see a lot also in the counseling, that we
Mhm.
see, students from the lower strata, the lower, socioeconomic strata of society. They go to Harvard, they go to Columbia, or wherever, and then it is an issue. You're right, it is an issue, because there's actually, you can't do the things that the other students take for granted. For instance, if the students are all, in a place like Harvard or Columbia, where there's a lot of wealthy students, okay, and maybe it's true to some extent at Northeastern. I know it was true when I was at Santa Clara many years ago. There are a lot of wealthy students. The fact that they can, like, oh, we're all going to a movie. Okay, so they'll all go to a movie. And then you realize you don't have money to go to a movie. Yung parang ganun. And also, going away to do stuff during spring break and being away, you can't do that. So sometimes when I counsel students, when I counsel clients, I say there's always cost of attendance, which is what it costs you to go through the school, books, room and board, tuition. And then there's what I call cost of experience, which is the cost of attendance plus the extras, whatever you need to really, things like that. So those are two different things.
Yeah.
So just to,
And
Mhm.
even before admission, really, even before admission, it's
Mhm.
like when you have this inequity, it's like looking at two children. One is completely naked, bare, without resources, and then another child full gear on in astronaut suit, and then you send
Mhm.
them both to Mars and expect that they would survive and reach the same goal. It's
There's-
ridiculous to do that, but that's how the admission is. Like
There-
people, even in UP, for example, or Ateneo, you take an exam, and
Yeah.
those people with resources would have,
Advantage.
my advantage to
True.
go to private schools.
Very
That's
true.
one. And
Very
then to
true.
get money to review centers.
Yeah.
And that
Okay,
completely skewed the
excellent point, Jane. Excellent point,
Mhm.
Jane.
Yeah.
Today, in the U.S. now, with admissions, what Jane is talking about, if I were to use it with the in the U.S. context, you have to take the SAT, for instance,
Mhm.
or these standardized tests, which number one costs money,
Mhm. Yeah.
a lot of money. So you're already paying for that, and the preparation for that is there's also cost to
Mhm.
that, like Jane said, which is very, very true. So now there's a lot of thinking in the States now that things like the SAT, those kinds of exams, are really not anything much more than a way of differentiating students who are rich from differentiating students who are poor.
Mhm.
Because the rich students tend to do well, the poorer students don't do as well. So a lot of schools now tend to, there are more and more schools that are eschewing the SAT as a requirement for admission. These places are called test optional places, and that you can or may or may not have to submit a test score. But anyway, yeah, but that's Jane is correct.
Yes.
Let me just
Well, I'm just
inject a very small sorry,
Mhm.
but there is kind of like ray of hope in the background, because a lot of schools, a lot of places like Harvard, like Columbia, like Yale, are really looking for students like Jane, who are very, they come from humble backgrounds, but they really excelled, really gone way beyond, what you would normally expect
Yeah.
students to be able, given their situation, would be able to
Yeah.
expect them to achieve. But these are,
Mhm.
so they're looking for these kinds of students. And yeah, I would love to talk to students like this. I mean, I would love to help them out. I'll do it for free. I don't have, I
Yeah,
don't mind.
definitely. And this is
Sorry,
actually
go
why I asked Colleen about her own experience when she moved to Boston. Colleen, what was it like? I mean, can you relate with what Jane was sharing earlier?
Yeah, to echo both John and Jane, like one particular thing that actually disheartened me in the beginning was that that advanced placement credits that
yeah.
people
Yeah.
my year were already ahead of me, and coming in from that background where we didn't have access to centers that would give us those AP credits, I was a bit upset that I didn't get those and had to take classes that we've basically done actually in the Philippines. And others, I feel like this cost of experience that John was talking about earlier was, I remember 5 years ago what you, Mom Kinet, and ICTSI warned me about, and basically trained myself and prepared myself in those situations. So
Yeah.
and I remember you and the whole group telling me that I just have to withstand that and stick to those people who would understand and who would still become your friends, like in the end. But yeah, that was definitely a struggle. Although I think still comparing myself, even though I had a different background, there are still students. I had a safety net, and that was you, that was ICTSI, and I received financial support, emotional and psychological support from you guys, and not a lot of students have that.
Exactly.
True.
And yeah, it is tough.
Wow. Yeah, so thank you, Colleen, because especially at that age, right? 16. I mean, it's not a joke. And as John said, there were times where probably your classmates would say, okay, let's just let's just watch a movie or, go party. And you're not used to that. You're not used to that in the Philippines, especially Colleen grew up as well in, I think, was it in Olongapo or Pampanga where you grew up?
I grew up in Bataan, but
Bataan,
went to
okay.
school in Olongapo.
Right. So see,
yeah, and
I'm sure the lifestyle is very different, right? So it really took her a lot of, not just, as Jane said, grit, but a lot of tenacity, a lot of mental fitness, because remember, we would chat once in a while. We would go FaceTime with PI, with Sophia, and you would share with us your, how you're doing, and it's not easy, especially when you're dealing with academic pressure, social pressure, homesickness. If you're hungry, you miss your parents, you miss your family. I mean, there's just a lot to handle. So yes, it's not that easy. So how has this shaped you, Colleen? I mean, I'm just curious. I mean, 5 years ago, who is Colleen now? Considering that you were there for 5 years already, and now you landed on a very, very good job. So how has this shaped you as a Filipina?
Yeah, it's we can take many hours talking about this, but I think
we need to have
definitely
a part 2, though. We need to
emotionally
have a part 2 of this.
emotionally stronger and more aware in terms of like cultural exposure, as we said, being respectful, and that awareness that Jane mentioned, that back home not everyone have the same access to resources. I echo that excitement about books, Jane. When I got to Northeastern, I was like, there's a library that I can go to 24/7 and I can check out books. I was really excited. I didn't get to read many books, which I know is a requirement for grad school. So I am practicing now and breaking my eyes. And another thing is, like, at a very young age, unfortunately, it is very sad that to the people that I'm close with back home, I'm already seeing some of those scenarios that Jane mentioned, and it is really hard when you can't do anything. So I try my best to give back, and that's why I'm working now. So I'm working to give back to my community, my family, and also to prepare for grad school. And
good.
the two of our panelists here are my inspirations because they both did really well on grad school, or
I don't know
not sure
about
if
me.
Jane's still in grad school.
Jane probably, I
Um,
did not do well in grad school.
but
That's
he has
another
that
story. That's for another story for
experience.
another time.
Okay, wow.
um,
So I see a commonality between Jane and Colleen's sharing with regard to their, probably classmates or neighbors, from the Philippines, and seeing them break down, into, where they are now. It's just heartbreaking for sure for you guys. If there's one thing that you probably could share with our family and friends who are watching us right now, what could be that? And I don't mean this to be an offensive thing for us Filipinos, but is there a way for, if there's one thing that you've learned abroad that you'd like to share with the Filipino friends or families that we have here, that will help us, just get a notch higher in our mindset, what would that be? Because I think here, in fact, I was going to ask some of my friends here, do we even have telenovelas here where they, they show rich people as the kind ones? Because most telenovelas here, when you're rich, it's always like the evil character, right? And then when you're poor, it's like you're the good one. And I think this is like a way of showing us that it's not good to be rich because then you'll be evil like that. And it's good to be poor because, this is, the more, the merrier, So I don't know if that's something that you could resonate with, because I hear these comments from a lot of people saying that Filipinos try to look at the rich as, evil, and the poor as the kind ones. And so then, no, I'd rather just not aim high, or I'd rather not dream big. So what have you guys have to say about this?
Well, honestly, I think the media in the Philippines, the television media or corporations should air more educational documentary
Yeah.
series rather than all this drama, because one, they are promoting all sorts of things which are not really enhancing the educational capacity of children,
Exactly.
and they're promoting things which could be deprecating to the growth of the society.
Well, I actually,
And
sorry. I was going to say that.
Go ahead, Jane. Sorry,
No,
sorry,
I-
Sean. We'll have Jane finish first.
Okay, I'm sorry. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
sorry, Jane. Sorry. Yeah.
so, a lot of Filipinos in the rural areas would have this idea that television is their pastime, and they would actually go to their neighbors to just watch television. And if we could have more responsibility, accountability from these corporations, media corporations, to actually focus on more educational series rather than drama, or the current I don't know what it's called, telenovela that they're showing, it could help a lot. That's one. And it could bridge actually the lack of good public schools, because we don't have public libraries, and we rarely have really excellent elementary teachers in the rural areas. I could definitely say that, because for majority of the highly trained primary school teachers would get their further training in the capital area, so they would be concentrated in NCR. So television or media is a good way to actually enhance education, and this should have been prioritized by these media corporations. Yes. Or if they could not do that, at least build libraries for every telenovela that they're airing and profiting from. This is just me, because books are very helpful, and I'd rather have kids read books than watch TV.
I was going to say real quickly was that I was going to say that I actually have family. My wife is actually acquainted with somebody who works in the media industry, and he writes scripts. actually, it was funny is that he also went to Ateneo. He actually studied physics, and he actually graduated a year before I did. But anyway, I asked him once, and I said, "How come we always have these really cheesy telenovelas on screen?" I said, "Why can't we have quality things like?" And I mentioned, the Netflix show House of Cards, and I said, "Why can't we have something like that?" And he said it very quickly. He said, "Nobody will watch. Nobody will watch. That's it. If we put something like that up, nobody will watch it."
Well, it should be entertainment.
Well, yeah, I agree.
Edutainment. Educational entertainment.
Absolutely.
Right?
But he's basically telling me is that a lot of these, is that there's not a lot of market for it, and it's probably more cost prohibitive for them to put something like that.
But John,
That said, I do agree with Jane. I think that sure.
No, definitely. I mean, even social media. I mean, when you see all these social media feeds, and you don't see a lot of educational stuff for kids, because especially teenagers. There's a lot for adults like ourselves, but what about the teens, right? They spend so much time on Instagram and Facebook, but there's not much there that can really teach, say, values or tenacity, or all these underlying values that we need to be successful in life, right? There's just all entertainment, but nothing about education. Not too much, though, at least in my opinion. So yeah. So okay, well, wow, time is really running so fast, eh? we've been chatting for about an hour now, over an hour now. I guess my last probably question to you guys would be what could be your message or inspiring message for our fellow Filipinos who probably are not just losing hope, but probably no longer interested to study, or even for those who want to study in the US, for example. I mean, what would be your message, Jane, to everyone?
To everyone, well, it takes a lot of dedication and time, and essentially you will be spending a great amount of your life studying. So if you really love it, go for it. If you're half-hearted about it, then I've not seen anyone who went far with a half-baked idea and a half-assed type of work. So if you want to do graduate school, then you have to have a clear vision. And I'm not just saying this as some sort of professional growth or personal growth. You have to have a bigger vision, because every day you change, your heart could change. You could change your career completely. But if you have a vision in mind that could, beyond yourself, that could, lay out the path for you clearly, then you wouldn't lose track. So I would say have a vision, push that vision, and have that vision beyond yourself. It's not about just you. It's not about just your personal growth, professional career, getting wealth, or acquiring all those things. I've met several people. I've met billionaires who are empty and lost. So have a vision outside of yourself. And if that means you need an education and further training, go for it.
Oh, very, very nice. Thank you so much, Jane. All right. So, what about you, John? What would be your message to everyone who's watching?
I think I'm going to just couch it in terms of what I do for professionally, which is I help with students getting into U.S. colleges and so on, just to let them know that there is hope. I think that some people, they look at U.S. schools and they look at a place like Northeastern, take one look at how much it costs and just go, I just go blank, like that. I think just like I said earlier with people like Jane, for instance, if people from a more humble background, if you're the kind of person who is from that situation and you've really achieved and you've tried to achieve and there is hope. I mean, there are a lot of schools in the States that are interested in people like yourself, and are willing to, places like Harvard, places like Yale or Princeton would be happy to pay the whole thing and then some for you to come to them, because they're really looking for students to be more, to make their campuses more economically, if not racially diverse. So there is that hope. And I hope that if somebody listening is thinking, well, I invite them to call me and just to get in touch with me. I'll be happy to talk to you and see where if there's a synergy there, if indeed that there is something that we can do. I'm more than happy to help.
Right. Great.
Um,
Thank you, John. Okay. Would you like to share with them how they could possibly reach you? Maybe share your email address.
Sure. Okay, so I'll just do it here. Okay.
Sure.
You can just contact me, John C JOHNSY 0809 at Gmail, which is probably the quickest way of doing it. John C 0809 at gmail.com. And just drop me a note saying, hey, I heard your talk with Danette, and I was wondering if you could, and usually we can do a Skype session like this or a Zoom session like this, and I can tell you whether or not there is something there, or honestly there isn't. Something like that. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much, John. All right. And what about you, Colleen?
I think to Jane's point on like profound focus for grad school, that's something I'm still working towards too. I tend to be interested in many things that I learn new about and tend to shift focus. But I think I'll address people my age. I think before this call, I reviewed my letter to my 16-year-old self that you made us right, Mom Tinette. And one of the things I remember from there that I can share with everyone is take initiative and always know that you belong to that vision that you're thinking about, and start small. Because at a very young age, you don't have to be deeply focused to something if you don't have to, or if you don't want to. Start small. Take sessions of your days just working on something that you're passionate about and or interested about, and develop that passion over time. And there are also online courses that are free from actually really good schools in the US that you can take on different fields. So just that. And instead of switching your free time scrolling through social media, I think do something more worthwhile. And I feel like media definitely affects the way we're interacting with other people, and that influences, I think, hugely our professional development and our just work ethics. So try to stay away from that, and just there are things that you can do. There are tricks on your phone that you can do to make them less interesting, like remove the colors or something.
Okay, thank you so much, Colleen. So, guys, you have been so inspiring, and it's no longer a mystery why you guys have been so successful in your journey as students and now as professionals. So let me just read some of the comments here from Miss Lynn Risoso. She says, I'm really inspired every time I watch you, my dear Tinette. Can I share on my timeline as well? And I said, yes, of course, she may share it on her timeline. And of course, Dr. Patty Likop is watching from ICTSI Foundation. Hello, Dr. Patty. Also, Milky Llorente. Hi, Milky. We have our ICTSI Foundation family watching us. Thank you so much. Also, Martina Villanueva. Hi, Martina. She's my niece. And then Miss Nana Reyes, also from CLCI, from Franklin Covey, Philippines. Hello, Miss Nana. How are you? We also have Raymond Magdaluyo. I don't know, John, if he became your student in Ateneo as well, but Raymond was my batchmate in Ateneo. Chinky Jacobe, Lorna De Canay, Miss Donna Misa, Marife Oliquino, Mr. Marcos, Jake Arevalo, my cousin, and of course, Miss Joy Lapuz from ICTS Foundation said, higher education for a greater purpose. Nice episode, Tinette and Consult Asia. Proud of you, my daughter, Sharmil. All right, so Sharmil and Colleen, it's just one person, but I've always known you as Colleen. You'll always be our baby Colleen. So Thank you so much, guys. I mean, if we should have a part two for this one, and I think it should run for 8 hours because I'm sure a lot of people would love to hear from you, and hopefully, well, not hopefully, but I'm sure a lot of our viewers were inspired. Maybe they have children or nephews and nieces, or even friends who might want to go to the States to study. They definitely learned so much from you. Not just learned so much from you, but were very much inspired by you. So thank you so much again, Jane, John, and Colleen, for spending time with me this morning here in the Philippines and this evening there in Boston. I know it's very late there now, so I will have to allow you both to rest because it's a Friday night. You should be out partying. No, I'm just kidding.
Not this time.
No, not this time. Definitely.
COVID
Yeah.
times.
Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching us. And if you have questions for our panelists today, just feel free to again email me, and I'll be happy to relay the questions to them. And maybe we can again organize something similar to this one with them in the future. All right. So again, thank you so much, and have a great weekend, everyone. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Take care.